What if I were to tell you that the very way you have been touching yourself over the years, habits formed in different times and under different circumstances, may now be quietly holding you back from feeling fully alive, deeply connected, and authentically intimate, even in this present chapter of your life? For a great many women navigating their 60s, 70s, and beyond, the practice of self-pleasure has always been rightfully thought of as safe, natural, and fundamentally healthy. And it absolutely is. But what if I were to also tell you that when this act is performed in certain specific ways, it can over time, gradually, and insidiously dull your physical sensitivity, reduce your capacity for natural arousal, and even leave you feeling emotionally distant from a partner you deeply love? My name is Dr. Lily Stones, and I am a board-certified physician with more than 3 decades of dedicated experience in the intricate field of women's health. Over these many decades, I have had the profound privilege of sitting with thousands of women, mothers, wives, and grandmothers, who have quietly and often tearfully confessed that something essential within them had changed. They were not feeling as much sensation during moments of intimacy. They found that they had increasing trouble reaching a climax, or that their once unshakable confidence in the bedroom had slowly and mysteriously slipped away. And so often, the root cause was not the process of aging itself. It was the subtle yet powerful ways in which their bodies had been conditioned by intimate habits they had picked up long ago. That is precisely why I need your full and undivided attention, because in this comprehensive guide, we are going to have a candid and compassionate conversation about 5 of the most common self-pleasure mistakes that can silently sabotage your intimate life after the age of 60, and, most importantly, what you can actively do to reverse them and reclaim your pleasure. Before we begin, if you find this conversation valuable and necessary, please take a moment to subscribe to this channel and click the notification bell so you never miss a new video designed to empower you. And if you wish to support other women within our growing community, I invite you to drop a quick yes in the comments below. Your feedback and engagement are invaluable and help me to create content that truly meets your needs. Now, let us start with the very first mistake, one that I see again and again in my clinical practice. It is so pervasive that I would estimate nearly 9 out of 10 women fall into this pattern at some point in their lives. And while it may feel like the quickest and most effective way to experience pleasure, it can over time quietly and fundamentally change the very way your brain and your body are wired to respond. Mistake 81C. The high vibration trap. Let me explain precisely what I mean. I want you to imagine sitting across from a woman in her late 60s in the quiet, confidential space of my office. She looks down at her hands, lowers her voice to a near whisper, and says, "Doctor, something's different. I just can't feel things the way I used to. I try, but it's like my body just won't respond anymore." I have heard that same heartbreaking story hundreds, if not thousands, of times. And when we gently and compassionately dig a little deeper, a very common thread often emerges: years of relying almost exclusively on very intense, highly focused, and direct stimulation, most often from a powerful vibrator that is consistently set at its highest speed. At first, this kind of powerful stimulation feels wonderfully efficient and can even be thrilling. But over an extended period of time, the body and the brain, in their infinite intelligence, adapt. A significant body of research has shown that our nervous system is highly trainable and plastic. When your brain becomes conditioned to expect this level of intense, direct clitoral stimulation, it begins to require that same level of intensity in order to register a state of arousal or to achieve a climax. This phenomenon, which is sometimes referred to as sensory adaptation or neural habituation, is a well-documented principle in the field of neuroscience. The profound problem is that real-life intimacy, whether it comes from a partner's gentle hand, their mouth, or the subtle and varied sensations of intercourse, very rarely, if ever, matches the machine-like strength and consistency of a high-powered vibrator. The result: when you are with someone you deeply care about, the emotional connection is there, the desire is present, but your body does not seem to respond in kind. You may struggle to feel physically aroused, or you may find it significantly harder to reach a climax. This is not because you have lost your innate sexuality, but because your brain has been meticulously wired to expect a very specific type of stimulation that simply does not happen naturally in the beautifully imperfect landscape of partnered intimacy. Beyond the purely physical aspect, this pattern often has a devastating effect of chipping away at a woman's confidence. Some women begin to avoid sexual encounters altogether, not because they do not want them, but because they are terrified of the potential for disappointment for both themselves and their partner. Others carry a silent and heavy burden of shame, coming to the erroneous belief that something deep inside them is fundamentally broken. But the profound truth is that nothing is broken. What has happened is simply a process of conditioning, and the wonderfully hopeful news is that this conditioning can be unlearned. If this scenario feels at all familiar to you, here is what you can begin to do. First, and most importantly, know with certainty that change is absolutely possible, even if you have relied on high-intensity stimulation for many decades. Start with small, manageable steps. You can begin by simply turning down the settings on your vibrator or by consciously taking breaks from using it altogether. Reintroduce the gentle and varied touch of your own hands and give yourself the explicit permission to explore different areas of your body, your inner thighs, your breasts, the sensitive skin of your lower back. Slow down, breathe deeply, and begin to notice the subtler, more nuanced sensations that can emerge when you are not in a rush to reach a finish line. Think of it as retraining your palate. If you have eaten very salty or very sweet foods for many years, at first, the taste of fresh fruit or lightly seasoned meals may seem bland and uninteresting. But if you give your taste buds time to recalibrate, you will soon begin to appreciate the rich and complex natural flavors once again. In the very same way, your body can relearn how to respond to and to cherish gentler, more realistic, and more varied forms of pleasure. And here is something incredibly important to remember. This process is not just about restoring a physical sexual response. It is about restoring your confidence, your sense of connection, and a deep and abiding trust in your own body. When you relearn to enjoy a softer, more natural, and more mindful rhythm, you will often find that intimacy with a partner becomes easier, more profoundly fulfilling, and significantly less stressful. Now, I know what you might be thinking. If something so common can cause this much trouble, what about the other intimate habits I have carried with me all these years? That is exactly why we need to have a conversation about the second mistake. Because while the intensity of stimulation can rewire your body, the repetition of the same mental patterns can powerfully rewire your brain. And that particular change is even more potent than most women ever realize. We will get to that next. In part 1, we talked at length about the high vibration trap, the pervasive habit of relying on powerful, direct clitoral stimulation that can, over time, condition your body to respond only to an intense, mechanical form of input. If that particular message resonated with you, I want to reassure you that you are not alone in this experience. But the intensity of the physical stimulus is not the only hidden saboteur of our intimate lives. The mind plays an absolutely critical and central role in the process of arousal, and when it gets stuck in rigid, repetitive patterns, it can become just as limiting as an over-reliance on any external device. At first glance, it sounds perfectly harmless. After all, using one's imagination, reading romance novels, or even watching erotica is something that a great many women have turned to for many years to enhance their arousal. But here is what modern science is now telling us. The human brain is remarkably and wonderfully adaptable. It learns patterns very quickly, especially when those patterns are directly and reliably tied to the powerful reward of pleasure. Neurologists refer to this phenomenon as neuroplasticity, the brain's incredible ability to fundamentally rewire itself based on our repeated experiences. When your state of arousal is repeatedly and consistently paired with a single, specific kind of fantasy or a very narrow and particular type of erotic material, your brain begins to expect, and eventually to require, that exact script in order to initiate a response. Over time, the beautifully unpredictable and multi-sensory experience of real-life intimacy your partner's unique touch, the warmth of skin-to-skin connection, the spontaneous and joyful laughter that can sometimes happen in bed, all begins to feel muted in comparison. Your body and your brain may respond less and less, not because you have lost your innate capacity for pleasure, but because your arousal mechanism has been so strongly and narrowly linked to a single, specific trigger. The unfortunate result is a phenomenon known as desensitization. What once excited you no longer does, unless the fantasy becomes more extreme, more novel, or more specific. It is like listening to your all-time favorite song every single day, over and over again, until eventually, and inevitably, it completely loses its magical spark. And tragically, when you are with a real, living, breathing partner, your mind can begin to drift away from the present moment, subconsciously searching for that familiar and powerful mental script instead of being fully present and engaged with the person you are with. But here is the wonderfully encouraging part of this story. This, too, can be reversed. You can begin this process by consciously varying what you expose your mind to. If you tend to habitually return to the same familiar storyline, try giving yourself a complete break from it altogether for a period of time. Explore the vast landscape of your own imagination in new and different ways. Or, better yet, shift your focus inward, onto the rich tapestry of the physical sensations that are happening within your body in the present moment, rather than focusing outward on a pre-written mental story. The practice of mindfulness, of paying close, non-judgmental attention to your breath, to your touch, and to the sounds around you, can gradually and effectively recondition your brain to find a state of arousal in the vibrant and authentic here and now. If you enjoy written or visual erotica, I encourage you to experiment with different genres, or to even consider sharing it with your partner as a way to create a more connected and collaborative experience. Variety, in this context, is not about losing what is familiar and comfortable. It is about reopening the door to a sense of flexibility, spontaneity, and renewed discovery. Just as changing up your workout routine can effectively reawaken muscles you had forgotten you even had, changing up your arousal cues can powerfully reignite a level of responsiveness you may have thought was gone for good. Now, if both the intensity and the repetition of our habits can interfere with our intimacy, there is another subtle habit that many women develop much earlier in their lives, often during their adolescence. It is a habit that can become so deeply ingrained that most women do not even realize it is still actively shaping their intimate experiences, even decades later. Mistake Fent 3. Treating masturbation like a race. I want you to think back to your younger years. For a great many women, the act of self-pleasure was something that was hidden, something that you did quickly, quietly, and often with a lingering and palpable sense of guilt or shame. You may have locked a bedroom door or hurried through the experience in the bathroom, constantly worried that someone would find out. The primary goal was not one of exploration or of deep connection with your own body. The primary goal was one of speed and secrecy. The inherent trouble is that once these high-speed habits are set, they often tend to persist throughout our lives. Even well into our 50s, 60s, or 70s, many women still subconsciously approach the act of self-pleasure as if it were a sprint to the finish line. Patients like Diane from Texas have shared with me, "I don't even think about it. I just finish in a few minutes, exactly like I always have." The body, in its wisdom, adapts to that rapid-fire rhythm. It learns how to reach a climax quickly, often without ever going through the natural and deeply pleasurable buildup of arousal that allows for a full-bodied, integrated sensation and a profound sense of satisfaction. The significant cost of this quick fix approach is twofold. First, it diminishes the potential of your own pleasure. You completely miss out on the gradual and beautiful unfolding of arousal, the way that sensation can build in delicious waves and can travel across many different parts of your body. Second, and perhaps more consequentially, it can limit your capacity for intimacy with a partner. If your body has been trained for years to respond only to speed, the slower, more meandering pace of partnered lovemaking may begin to feel unsatisfying, frustrating, or even boring. And perhaps most importantly of all, this rushed approach unconsciously keeps the old feelings of shame alive. Deep down, a great many women still carry the antiquated and harmful messages they received in their youth. The messages that their sexuality was something that needed to be hidden, or that seeking their own pleasure was somehow wrong or selfish. Even if, on a logical level, you now know better, that powerful emotional undercurrent can persist, casting a long and subtle shadow over both your solo and your partnered intimate experiences. So, what is the alternative? I encourage you to give yourself the precious and profound gift of time. Consciously carve out a dedicated space for yourself, pleasure that is not rushed or hidden. You might light a candle, play some soft, soothing music, or simply close your eyes and take several deep, cleansing breaths. Use your hands not only for the purpose of direct stimulation, but for the loving act of caressing your arms, your chest, and your hips, gently reminding yourself that your entire body is a beautiful and capable vessel of pleasure. Approach this time with a spirit of curiosity rather than one of urgency. Notice how your body responds when you consciously slow everything down. Allow your state of arousal to build in beautiful undulating layers instead of rushing straight towards a climax. Think of it as if you are learning a new and exquisite language of touch, one that speaks not of panic or of secrecy, but of profound self-respect and of deep, unadulterated enjoyment. This fundamental shift does not just enhance your sexuality, it restores a powerful sense of calm, of confidence, and of ownership over your own body. And when you carry that new, empowered energy into your intimate life with a partner, the difference can be absolutely profound. But as freeing as the act of slowing down can be, there is another significant obstacle that a great many women face. One that has less to do with the pace or the fantasy, and more to do with your basic physical comfort. It is something that is surprisingly simple, yet shockingly and frequently overlooked. And if you have ever felt a sense of burning, of dryness, or of irritation after the act of self-pleasure, this next mistake may very well be the reason why. That is where we will pick up next. In the last section, we explored how the habits of our mind and the pace of our self-pleasure can quietly, but profoundly shape our long-term sexual health. We talked about how repeating the very same fantasy can condition the brain to crave only one specific script, and how rushing through the act of self-pleasure, as if it were a race, can serve to limit both our potential for pleasure and our capacity for deep connection. Now, let us move into a more physical, but equally important and often overlooked mistake. This one is so beautifully simple, yet so commonly disregarded, that many women do not realize the significant harm it may be causing until many years later. Mistake Y4A: not using lubrication, or using the wrong kind. I simply cannot count the number of times that I have had a woman in her 60s or 70s sit across from me in my office, describing a persistent sense of irritation, of stinging, or even of outright pain after she has engaged in self-pleasure. When I gently and compassionately ask her, "Do you use a lubricant?" the response is very often one of genuine surprise. "No, I never needed that before," or "I just assumed that a bit of dryness was normal at my age." Here is the physiological reality. As we age, our bodies change. In the years after menopause, our estrogen levels decline significantly. This crucial hormonal shift causes the delicate and sensitive tissues of the vulva and the vagina to become thinner, more fragile, and significantly less naturally moist. What used to feel perfectly comfortable at the age of 30 can now feel unpleasantly abrasive at the age of 65, without the protective and cushioning effect of a good lubricant. The delicate skin in this area can easily develop tiny micro-tears, so small that you may not even notice them at first. But over time, these small and repeated injuries can lead to a state of chronic irritation, of inflammation, and, eventually, to a noticeable reduction in your physical sensitivity. Even worse, some women, in an attempt to find a solution, try to make do with whatever happens to be around, products like petroleum jelly, scented lotions, or even soaps. These products may seem harmless at first glance, but they can severely disrupt the natural and healthy pH balance of the vagina. They can clog the delicate pores of the skin, and they can significantly increase your risk of developing either infections or allergic reactions. The very products that were intended to provide a sense of relief can end up causing far more harm in the long run. So, what is the clear and simple solution? It is the consistent use of the right kind of lubrication, used intentionally and generously. A high-quality, body-safe lubricant that has been designed specifically for the purpose of intimacy can make all the difference in the world. Water-based lubricants are generally very gentle. They are easy to clean up, and they are safe to use with most toys. Silicone-based lubricants tend to last longer and can be especially helpful if your experience of dryness is particularly significant. And if you happen to prefer something more natural, organic coconut oil is an option that many women greatly enjoy, though it is best to avoid it if you are using any latex products, as oils can potentially weaken them. When you begin to use a high-quality lubricant on a regular basis, you are not just preventing a state of discomfort, you are actively protecting your long-term sexual health. Think of it in the same way that you would think about moisturizing your skin. As we get older, we would not dream of skipping the use of lotion for our hands or for our face. The very same principle applies here. This one small but significant adjustment in your routine can help to preserve your sensitivity, to prevent irritation, and to restore both your comfort and your pleasure. Neglecting this simple and crucial step is like attempting to drive a car without any oil in the engine. You might be able to get away with it for a little while, but eventually and inevitably, something is going to break down. By consciously and lovingly honoring your body's new and evolving needs, you make it possible for yourself to continue to enjoy the experience of intimacy, not only without any pain, but with a renewed sense of ease and of confidence. But even when the physical side of things is well cared for, there is one final and pervasive mistake that can quietly and completely undermine everything else. It does not directly damage the skin or condition the brain, but it has a way of seeping into every single intimate moment, casting a long and dark shadow over both your confidence and your capacity for connection. Mistake point 5: carrying shame into the bedroom. For a great many women, this is the heaviest and most painful burden of all. I have sat with women in their 60s, 70s, and even their 80s who still automatically lower their voices when they admit that they masturbate, as if it were some kind of a dirty and shameful secret. These are powerful and accomplished women who have raised families, who have led successful careers, and who have cared for their loved ones for decades, and yet they still feel that their own sexuality is something that must be hidden away. Why is this so? It is because the powerful and often harmful messages that they absorbed decades ago, in a very different time, have never fully gone away. Many of them grew up with the deeply ingrained belief that good women did not touch themselves, or that a woman's sexuality existed only for the purpose of pleasing her husband. Even if, on a logical and intellectual level, they now know that those outdated beliefs are not true, on an emotional level, the shame can still linger. And that deep-seated shame does not just sit quietly in the background, it spills over into everything. It makes it harder to feel fully present and uninhibited during moments of intimacy with a partner. It can make you question whether your own desires are normal or acceptable. It creates a palpable sense of distance, not because you do not want to feel a sense of connection, but because, deep down, you may still wonder if you truly deserve it. Some women even begin to believe that they have aged out of their own sexuality altogether. But here is what I so desperately want you to hear with every fiber of your being. There is absolutely nothing shameful about caring for your own body. There is nothing whatsoever wrong with seeking pleasure, with seeking connection, and with seeking touch at any age. In fact, a great deal of research from highly respected institutions like the National Institutes of Health, the NIH, has shown that a sense of sexual well-being remains an incredibly important and vital part of our overall health and of our quality of life. Well into our older adulthood, masturbation is not a sign of loneliness or of any kind of dysfunction. It is a powerful form of self-awareness, of stress relief, and of staying beautifully and vitally connected to your own body. When you are able to let go of the heavy burden of guilt, you do not just reclaim a sense of your own physical pleasure, you also begin to rebuild a profound sense of trust in yourself. You are able to open up a space for a deeper and more authentic intimacy with a partner. And you are able to allow yourself to be fully and completely human, embracing both your needs and your inherent worth. So, how do you begin to release a sense of shame that may have been with you for decades? It starts with the simple and powerful act of giving yourself permission. Give yourself the explicit permission to be able to experience your own pleasure without any kind of an apology. Begin to consciously shift your mindset. Instead of seeing the act of self-pleasure as something that is secret or wrong, begin to see it as a beautiful and powerful act of self-care. Just like the acts of stretching, of meditating, or of eating nourishing and delicious food. And if you feel comfortable enough to do so, begin to talk about it with your trusted friends or with your partners. The more that we are able to bring the topic of our sexuality out into the light, the less power that the feeling of shame will have over all of us. This particular change may feel somewhat uncomfortable at first, but over time, as you begin to approach your own body without any kind of a judgment, something profound begins to shift. You will begin to see yourself not as someone who is too old or too broken, but as someone who is still wonderfully vibrant, who is still so deeply and completely deserving of intimacy, and who is still so completely and totally capable of experiencing joy. And that is the true and beautiful essence of this entire journey. These 5 common mistakes: the high vibration trap, the habit of repeating the same fantasies, the tendency to rush through the experience of pleasure, the act of ignoring the need for lubrication, and the heavy burden of carrying a sense of shame, do not in any way define you. They are, quite simply, just patterns. And patterns, once they have been seen and acknowledged, can absolutely be changed. As we now move into the final section of our discussion together, I would like to invite you to take a moment to reflect. Which of these particular mistakes felt the most familiar to you, and which one small and gentle adjustment feels like it might be possible for you to make right now? Because every single shift, no matter how small it may seem, is a powerful and significant step toward the act of reclaiming your intimacy, your vitality, and your profound sense of connection. In our very last part together, we will bring everything that we have discussed together. We will talk about how you can begin to unlearn these old and unhelpful habits, how you can begin to rebuild your own sensitivity and your confidence, and how you can begin to step into a healthier and more fulfilling intimate life. One that is a true and beautiful reflection not of your past conditioning, but of your present and undeniable worth. If you have stayed with me through this entire and important journey, I want to take a moment to sincerely acknowledge you. The act of talking about these deeply personal and intimate habits is not always an easy thing to do. For a great many women, it can stir up a lot of old memories, a lot of feelings of guilt, or even a lot of fears about what the process of aging might mean for their own sexuality. But you have made the courageous choice not to shy away from this important topic. You have made the choice to listen, to learn, and to begin to take back a sense of control over your own body and over your own pleasure. That simple act, in and of itself, is incredibly and profoundly powerful. Let us now take a step back and reflect on where we have been together. We have uncovered 5 of the most common and silent habits that so many women over the age of 60 will carry with them, often without even realizing the significant and cumulative impact that they are having on their lives. We have talked about the high vibration trap, a situation in which a state of reliance on overly intense and powerful stimulation is able to condition the body to expect a level of stimulation that real and authentic intimacy is simply not able to replicate. We have talked about the habit of relying on the very same and repetitive fantasies, or on a very narrow range of media, a habit that can effectively rewire the brain away from a state of real and present connection. We have talked about the rushed and hurried approach to our intimacy that is so often learned in our youth, a habit that is able to rob the experience of self-pleasure of its potential for both depth and for discovery. We have talked about the common absence or the misuse of lubrication, a factor that can physically and progressively harm the delicate and sensitive tissues of the body and can serve to diminish our overall sense of comfort. And finally, we have talked about the quiet and heavy weight of our shame, the most invisible and yet the most destructive of all of these habits. Each one of these particular mistakes may seem to be quite small on its own, but when they are all taken together, they can create a profound and painful sense of distance from your partner, from your own pleasure, and even from yourself. And yet, what I so deeply and completely want you to be able to carry forward with you from our time together today is this one simple and profound truth: none of these particular patterns are able to define you. They are, quite simply, just habits. Habits that have been shaped by our culture, by the passage of time, and by our own unique and personal circumstances. And the wonderful and hopeful news is that all of our habits can be unlearned. So, what does that process actually look like in practice? It all begins with a state of awareness, the very and courageous step that you have already taken by simply being here with me today. And from that point on, it is all about the process of making some small, gentle, and intentional changes. It is about making the conscious choice to select a lower and more gentle setting on your device. Or sometimes, to simply set the toy aside altogether. It is about allowing yourself the freedom and the permission to be able to explore some new and exciting fantasies, or even better, to be able to embrace the rich and multi-sensory experience of real and authentic touch, of sound, and of connection. It is about taking the time to be able to slow down, and about giving yourself the permission to be able to savor the experience of your intimacy, rather than having to rush through it. It is about making the simple and conscious choice to use the right kind of a lubrication, and about caring for your own body in the way that it so deeply and completely deserves to be cared for. And most importantly of all, it is about the act of lifting the heavy and painful burden of your shame and of replacing it with a profound and unwavering sense of self-respect and of self-compassion. When you begin to make the courageous decision to shift these old and unhelpful habits, something truly and completely beautiful begins to happen. Your own natural and physical sensitivity begins to return to you. The process of your arousal is able to become much more natural and much more spontaneous. Your own sense of confidence is able to be rebuilt on a much more solid and authentic foundation. The experience of your intimacy is able to feel so much less like a performance and so much more like a genuine and beautiful connection, whether that is with your partner or simply within yourself. And perhaps most importantly of all, you will begin to see your own sexuality not as something that is able to fade away with the passage of time, but as something that is able to evolve, to deepen, and to continue to matter for the rest of your life. I have had the incredible and profound privilege of being able to witness this beautiful and powerful transformation in countless numbers of my own patients. Women who had once thought that their very best days were long behind them, only to be able to discover that the experiences of pleasure, of connection, and of vitality were still very much within their reach. And you can absolutely and completely be one of them as well. Here is the one and important life lesson that I would like to be able to leave you with today. Your body is not finished, and neither is your own and unique capacity for joy. Our sexuality is not just about our youth, it is about our aliveness. It is about our ability to be able to be connected to our own senses, to our own desires, and to our own and inherent worth. It is about the act of honoring ourselves, not as who we were so many decades ago, but as the vibrant and beautiful woman that we are today. So I would like to invite you to take a moment to ask yourself this one simple and powerful question. Which one of these particular and important changes do you feel ready to be able to begin to make for yourself right now? Your own personal and unique story is one that matters so very much, and it might just be the very thing that is able to inspire another woman to be able to begin her own and unique journey of rediscovery. And if you have not already done so, I would be so very grateful if you would please take a moment to be able to subscribe to this particular channel and to be able to click on the bell icon. That way, you will never have to miss out on the kind of honest and compassionate health advice that we create here, just for women like you. Finally, I would like to encourage you to be able to share this particular video with a sister, with a friend, or with someone that you know who may be in need of this particular and important reminder. Too many of our women are suffering in a state of silence, as they are so often believing that their own and unique sexuality has already expired. But the profound and wonderful truth of the matter is that it has not, and sometimes, all that it takes is one single and individual conversation, or one single and individual piece of knowledge, to be able to bring back a sense of hope to our lives. Thank you so very much for having spent this valuable and important time with me today. Thank you for having honored yourself enough to be able to be here with me. And please, I would like you to remember that you are not broken, that you are not alone, and that you are absolutely and completely still worthy of intimacy, of connection, and of pleasure. This is Dr. Lily Stones, and I am wishing you a life of health, of confidence, and of joy, today, tomorrow, and always.